my apologies on behalf of Council colleagues to the three groups of submitters we have for the public forum. We have been deep in important and meaningful discussions, perhaps, we think. I'm sorry you've been having to hang around for so long. I'll declare the meeting open and remind colleagues that after this meeting we have a council meeting, and so I won't accept questions that are pretend questions, and I would ask you to make sure that your comments are as succinct as possible. The three groups for the public forum are all here, I believe, and we have, they understand their time is limited absolutely to 5 minutes, and if they are interested in taking questions after their presentation, which I'm sure there will be, I would ask councillors to be constrained in that respect, and I will limit the time available for that as well for the aforementioned reasons. So first of all, could I invite Christopher Le Breton and John Bentham to come up to the table, please. Mr. Le Breton and Mrs. Le Breton and Bentham are going to talk to us about their concerns around 5G rollout in Dunedin. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you very much, Simon. I'm Christopher Le Breton. I'm a former government policymaker.
Could you press the button and turn your microphone on, please?
You heard that. I'm Christopher Le Breton, a former government policymaker in the European Union.
I'm John Bentham. I've got a background in science and health. My concern is whether, like many of you, I'm probably past the halfway point in my life, and I'm just concerned about the choices we're making for the future generations.
And just before we get going, I should say I changed my flight to be here today. I was one of the few Pākehā invited to speak at Waitangi last week. We understand that Dunedin is presenting itself as a smart city. We see a smart city as a city that looks after its citizens and the environment in keeping with the Treaty of Waitangi. Implementing the gigabyte fast broadband fibre network has cost $2 billion of taxpayers' money and is going to be phenomenally fast and world class. There is no controversy about its safety, is there?
And we've got no agenda in being here today except for asking for objectivity and correct political procedure. A lot of our concerns are arising because we've got Lloyd's of London, Swiss Re, who are two of the major insurance underwriters globally, refusing to cover for 5G. A lot of the insurance companies in New Zealand are refusing to cover for 5G. The former CEO of Microsoft in Canada is speaking out against the installation of 5G, so we're raising the questions about whether it's a wise thing to proceed with for the city that we're in. And we ask that the Planning and Environmental Committee recommends that the Dunedin City Council invokes a precautionary principle for the protection of health and safety while a task force is set up to define what the policy should be regarding for 5G in Dunedin. And we will be happy to donate our time, the hundreds of hours we put in towards this.
So let's look at in some more detail. Let's define the problem. 5G poses serious threats to the health of the community, particularly to children, the old and the infirm. And I'm referring to Physicians for Safe Technology for that information.
And that's why we're asking, shouldn't we as a smart gigabyte city listen to the unprecedented warnings from 230 scientists and doctors globally and at least consider, is there an issue that we should consider? The 5G wireless rollout for Dunedin is at this point, without public consent or consultation for the public. From the legal advice we've been given, it's a violation of the New Zealand Bill of Rights, as well as the Human Rights UN Charter, and it's not good democratic process. And the legal advice we've been given is that a notice of liability can be served to the councils if the safety of the public is at risk.
Looking at the industry position, the telco's denial of dangers is based on the outdated 1998 industry standards of the International Commission on Non-Ionizing Radiation Protection, ICNIRP. ICNIRP lacks transparency, independence and accountability and underplays the research data to suit its telco members' interests, a case of classic conflict of interest. Millions of dollars are being spent for the promotion of driverless cars and gadgets, yet nothing is being spent on public education on the dangers of 5G. And the media appears broadly behind the positives of 5G and hasn't, to date, facilitated any honest comparison between the pros and cons.
And with regard to what the 5G actually is and how it works, we've been misinformed. Like, the media is talking about 5G being an upgrade from 4G, which is not correct. It's a completely different technology. It's a short millimetre wave technology that's a beam technology, not a radiant technology like 4G is. In California, the firefighters have successfully won a court case where there's not allowed to be transmitters outside a fire station because it inhibits their ability to do their job. We're here in New Zealand, we can put it outside schools, hospitals, our homes. So that's why we're just simply raising the question, is it safe? Should we question it? If it's not safe for firefighters, why should it be safe for our children? We're also looking at the environmental side of it, the loss of trees, which is part of Dunedin city's flavour. As you walk around outside, all these trees in the city may be lost if it rolls out ahead, and also the insect life. We're down to 10% of the insect biomass that there was 100 years ago, and the invertebrates are one of the most at-risk groups if 5G rolls out. We'll stand to lose the pollinators out of the ecosystem.
Before we move to the conclusions and recommendations, just some health things. We have reports of nosebleeds. Okay, so conclusions and recommendations. Why don't you go straight forward to recommendations?
We would just like the Dunedin City Council Environmental Committee to consider a safe assessment of 5G before it's installed for the public.
Thank you very much, and your timing is impeccable. Councillors, you are happy to take questions?
Yeah, sure.
You happy to take questions? Gentlemen? You're happy to take questions?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Right. Councillors, anyone have a question? Councillor Vandevos.
I understand your concerns about 5G. I also understand there's been a progressive increase in the amount of radiation that we're subjected to, and over a long period of time now. We've had 3G, we're on 4G now, and for a lot of people 5G is just seen as a progression and not fundamentally different. Is it your opinion that the benefits of 5G are not such that we need to actually move on 5G in the next year or two? How long do you think we should wait before those benefits, and there are some, and I think you'll recognise that, how long do you think we should wait to actually be satisfied that 5G is actually comparatively safe?
I think that's twofold. Firstly, as soon as there is independent research that shows that it's safe for the public, then there's no reason not to move ahead with it. And the only other caution that I would have is some of the other countries where it's rolled out, if there is health problems where it's been exposed to the public, then we should pause. And at the moment there is documentation of health problems in other countries, and they've retracted the technology. So that's and some of that is also centred around the legality, because the insurance companies won't cover in some countries.
Okay, so just to clarify, you're suggesting a pause. Are we talking a few months or?
Well, as soon as there's some credible independent scientific research then that can show it's safe, then there's no reason not to move ahead with it.
Okay, and my final question is, do you recognise specific advantages to 5G? Have you looked into it enough to see that there are positives with it as well?
The fibre optic network that's available at the moment seems to give everything we need in the way of internet. So there's no need for the public for 5G. The risk for our children is higher than the advantages that are portrayed by the people who are going to be selling us the technology.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I've got lots of questions around 5G as well, and I've been trying to get some answers which I haven't got either. Like, for example, what have you heard about trees? Because I was concerned about that too. Someone told me that a lot of our trees are going to be cut down. But that is my question. I did ask a question. I said, what have they heard about trees?
It's hard to get precise facts, but we're hearing that 5G doesn't pass through trees easily. It's obstructed. We're also hearing from around the world that where 5G and trees interface, there is an area of the greenery which dies. So telco contractors are asked to remove trees ASAP, so the public cannot see dying trees because that would freak them out.
Yeah.
There is also a bylaw that got passed about 2 years ago in New Zealand that gave the telecommunication companies the right to install transmitters every 200 metres on public land outside of houses, and they require line of sight for that transmitter to work. So if there's a tree between those 200 metres of transmitters, then they've got the right to remove them.
Do you feel there's been enough transparency around this?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. You look in Auckland, you see trees coming down, you see in Grenoble, Sheffield, UK, half the trees have come down, and they're using the excuse of cycle lanes because they can't tell people it's for 5Gs, but essentially not enough transparency, not enough accountability, not in councillors, they're not often aware.
Do you think the public know what is planned, or that this might not be planned, but I don't know? Do you think they?
Well, more and more councillors around the world and the public are getting concerned because of the lack of consultation. And in New Zealand, given your rights were taken away by the 2008 Helen Clark government, probably for the best of intentions, but however, the authorities left the local areas, and people are concerned.
I would certainly like to know more. Thank you.
Thank you. Further questions? There appear to be none. Thank you very much for your presentation, gentlemen.
Thank you.
And our next presentation is from Mr. Bruce Spittle, who's going to talk about his concerns about fluoridation of our drinking water supply. Mr. Spittle, greetings. You heard you know that you're aware of the constraint for 5 minutes, so the floor is yours.
Tēnā koutou katoa. In an endeavour to provide an optimal environment for its citizens, the Dunedin City Council follows the recommendations of the Ministry of Health and adds fluoride to the water supply to reduce tooth decay. The Council adds 0.75 milligrams of fluoride per litre to achieve a dosing at the lower end of the Ministry of Health's recommended range of 0.7 to 1.0 milligrams per litre. Since fluoridation started in Dunedin over 50 years ago, in 1967, a great deal of research has been done on the effects of fluoride. I am grateful for the opportunity to draw attention to the Council to a significant recent review done by Philippe Grandjean of the Public Health Departments of Harvard University and the University of Southern Denmark. He reviewed the studies on how fluoride affects the development of the brain that have been done since he made an earlier review in 2012. He commented that more weight must be placed on prospective studies, and that 3 recent prospective studies, 2 in Mexico in 2017 and 1 in Canada in 2018, provided much stronger evidence than 2 earlier studies from New Zealand, one from Christchurch in 1986 and one in Dunedin in 2015. The 2018 study from Canada showed a loss of 8.6 IQ points for every 1 milligram increase in the water concentration, in the fluoride concentration in the water. He calculated that the IQ of children was adversely affected if the water fluoride level was above about 0.2 milligrams per litre. This level is clearly less than that aimed at with water fluoridation of 0.7 milligrams per litre. Grandjean stated that these new prospective studies are of very high quality, and that given the wealth of supporting human studies and biological plausibility, there was little doubt that developmental neurotoxicity is a serious risk associated with elevated fluoride exposure, especially when this occurs during early brain development. He concluded that the next generation's brain health presents a critical issue in the risk-benefit assessment of fluoride exposure. This concern about the effects of fluoride on brain development is supported by a further study published earlier this year by Christine Till and others from Canada. She found that a 0.5 milligram per litre increase in the fluoride level in water, which corresponds to the difference between fluoridated and non-fluoridated water regions, was associated with a 9.3 point decrease in the performance IQ for formula-fed children and a 6.2 decrease for infants who were breastfed for the first 6 months. Her team concluded that exposure to increasing levels of fluoride in tap water was associated with diminished non-verbal intellectual abilities and that the effect was more pronounced in formula-fed children. It has been noted that formula-fed infants residing in fluoridated areas have approximately 70-fold higher fluoride intake than exclusively breastfed infants. Till and others note that fluoride is not essential for growth and development and that the beneficial effects of fluoride predominantly occur at the tooth surface after the teeth have erupted. They comment that in the absence of any benefit from fluoride exposure in the first 6 months, it is prudent to limit fluoride exposure by using non-fluoridated water or water with a lower fluoride content to make up infant formula. Thus, this recent research indicates that in order to provide an optimal environment for the brain development of children, the drinking water should not have additional fluoride added to it. The natural fluoride level in Dunedin water is about 0.1 milligrams per litre, which is safe. The fluoridated water at present supplied by the Council has about 0.7 milligrams per litre, which is unsafe. A principle of medicine is primum non nocere. Above all, do no harm. The present evidence indicates that the Dunedin City Council is causing harm to children by adding fluoride to the water supply. It is time to take a second look at this policy.
Thank you. And your timing is also impeccable. Councillors, questions? Councillor Lord.
Yeah, Bruce, I guess I declare I grew up in an area with no fluoride, so if I'm a bit behind the 8 ball with the IQ, there's other reasons for it. But my question is, we've had a previous council, so not this council, but previously we've had people from the Ministry of Health, and we've also had people from the dental school tell us that they still believe that fluoride is good. And I've got a daughter that's a dentist that also thinks it's very important. And I'm just wondering, why is it that you feel you would advise us to go against what the Department of Health is recommending?
Yeah, I would suggest that you ask the Department of Health what they make of this review by Philippe Grandjean. He presents good evidence of high quality, and the previous attitude is based on, for example, the 2014 report commissioned by Sir David Skegg of the Royal Society and Sir Peter Gluckman, the Science Advisor to the Prime Minister. But that's based on 2014 information. These are reports from 2017 and 2018, and I'd like to see that you seek advice of those bodies that you rely on regarding these new findings.
Thank you. Councillor Vandervis.
You're referring to fluoride in the water supply. What is your view on topical fluoride, and what is your view on the freedom of choice issue with having it disseminated through the water supply?
It's accepted that whatever effect fluoride has on teeth, which can be beneficial, it's a topical effect coming from applying fluoride to the surface of the tooth. There's nothing to be gained by swallowing it. It's like swallowing sunblock to prevent sunburn, and there's a freedom of choice issue when it's put in the water. It's very hard to avoid.
Thank you. Further questions, councillors? There appear to be none. Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Spittle, for your presentation. The third presenter today is Mr. Clive Doubleday. He's going to talk to us about our issues relating to the administration of our reserves and beaches bylaw. Welcome.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My background is occupational safety and health. I have a diploma for graduates from Otago University in management as well. And I've worked here in New Zealand and in the UK and in Europe concerning that. Now, I've also been a law enforcement officer for a number of years, and some of you may recognise me around the place as businessmen around the place. What I'm concerned about is I have no problems with the actual bylaw itself. I totally agree with the driving on beaches is detrimental to bird life and seals and other life on the beach. But what I am concerned about is how the law or the bylaw has been administered by your operational arm. They don't seem to have the understanding of where your boundary begins and finishes. Now, I'm of the opinion that Matanika Drive actually goes across the estuary coming out of Hawkesbury Lagoon. It is on some of the maps and it is not on others. The boundary for ORC against DCC says that this is an approximate line. Now, if you're taking somebody to court, you do not have approximations in law. You either have a black or white. You either am in the reserve or I am not in the reserve. Now, the other piece that I've got is that you seem to, or your operational arm seems to be using what I call concerned citizens. Okay, as a concerned citizen, I can put your car licence plate into DCC, into your operational arm, and they will take credence from that I was actually breaching the legislation when I may not have been. I have a letter here from a Mr. Excuse me while I put my glasses on.
West.
Mr. Robert West, stating that if I to breach the legislation again, I could be fined up to $5,000. I don't think I was breaching the legislation. I think I was on Matanika Drive. Am I breaching the Reserve Act if I'm on Matanika Drive? Am I driving on the beach at Matanika Drive? All I'm asking for is a little bit of clarity from this committee and from your operational arm to state where the boundary is so that I can make informed decisions on where I park. If you have a look at Matanika Drive and have a look at the boundaries on the maps, it says that you, as the council, own 20 Matanika Drive as a reserve, right? That drive is quite narrow. The 20 Matanika Drive goes right up to the road, basically. So if I park on the grass on Waikuiti Beach, I am parking in the reserve and driving on the reserve. Now, there was 2 buses on that reserve this morning, parked on there. Also, you repaired that reserve one day, and then a bunch of people came along with their 4x4s and dug ditches into the grass reserve again the day after you repaired it. All I'm saying is that this piece of legislation has been made to regulate idiots. Do I look like an idiot? I know where the birds nest. I know where the seals are. I wasn't driving on the beach. I was parked on Matanika Drive, or very close to it. No worse than parking on the grass verge along Matanika Drive. Yet I get a letter like this. I know what I had to do as a law enforcement officer to write a letter like that. First of all, I had to have the facts. Who did I get the facts from? Was it hearsay from a concerned citizen, or was it from one of my warranted officers? Now, I gather sorry, again, I've got to put my glasses on.
You've got 5 seconds.
Mr. West is actually in the room. Was it a warranted officer? That's my 5 minutes, by the way. Is
That
it?
is indeed the 5 minutes. And I'll
Any
cancel-
questions? Sorry.
Yes, I have a question for you. Did you actually, when you contacted Mr. West, I don't know why I can't turn that off, when you contacted Mr. West, did you actually tell him that you hadn't been driving on the beach?
I told him I was parked on the beach, yes.
I'm sorry?
I told him parked on the beach, and then I asked could I have the name of the person who'd put my name or my registration number to the council. He refused to give me that.
Well, that would be the normal procedure.
Yeah, but am I not allowed to face my accuser?
Well, perhaps, Ms. Graham, would you like to make a response to that?
Complainant information is protected under the Local Government Official Information and Meeting Act.
So if I take a position of under the Official Information Act, could I find that name?
No, that request would be declined.
Am I allowed to have the name of the ranger in my community? The authorised officer.
I would have to just check on that, but I'm happy to provide you information following the meeting.
As a warranted officer for the Department of Labour, it was one of the things I would have to do, provide my name and identification and my warrant and the piece of legislation I was taking the person under.
Okay, I'm not going to get into a 2 or 3-way conversation here. I'm happy for you if there are other issues that you want clarity on, such as that one. If you communicate those in writing to the staff, we'll get answers where that's appropriate.
Yep.
Otherwise, you're happy to take questions from councillors
I
briefly?
certainly do.
Questions anywhere? There are none. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
And we will clarify the issues that you've raised.
Thank you very much.